Hey everybody, welcome to Game Changer Series 1 presented by Verizon. We begin with 4 teams today, and by the end of today, we'll only have 2. It's sad, it's great, but hey, I'm your host, Lemmy Kiwi at the end of the day. It's my pleasure to welcome Mimi and Wyatt to the analyst desk. What's up? Mimi, no science code today, very serious business.
No, only serious business. I actually got my science degree taken away from me after they found out it was fraudulent, but hopefully I still know something about VALORANT.
So sad.
Why does Mimi call you grandpa? I can't get over that.
Because he doesn't know how to use his camera.
I mean, I'm when it comes to technology, computers, phones, laptops, tablets, etc.
Everything.
I'm just old. I just don't know how to operate anything, so I have to contact Mimi, who's actually in touch with technology. I needed help turning on my camera today. That's what difficult. I needed help with. That's the current state of where I'm at. It's very unfortunate. But
thankfully, he does still have a BlackBerry from 2008 that is actually connected to the Verizon network. So he's very real about the sponsors.
Well, we have a mix of old rosters and new when it comes to this upper final between Shopify and Shopify Rebellion and version 1. But I want to show the bracket to everybody to see how we got here. Mimi, it's so great to see Moist Moguls make it this far.
It is. I think for Moist Moguls, it was a team who people had a lot of questions about going down into this lower bracket, losing their organization right before Game Changers started. But they had 2 crazy comebacks to make it to this point and now have that lower bracket run kind of started. But they're facing up against XSET next, which is going to be a pretty difficult one, Wyatt.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that XSET game. Just we talked about when we were casting the other day, Mimi, but XSET in the lower bracket, something activates. They have just been on a tear since getting knocked down by Shopify. They've barely dropped any rounds, and individually, they've just been going crazy. And the way that they're playing is just so confident and fearless. It's just so entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, the biggest thing that's a surprise to me here is looking at the upper final and not seeing C9 versus Shopify. This is like, for the first time in a Game Changers, we have something different. We have new teams, we have new storylines. So this one, I think, is going to be a really exciting rendition of that upper final that we've seen so many times before in the past.
This is going to be such an exciting upper final, maybe even a teaser to what the grand final could be if we get to that point. But yeah, let's zoom in to our first match, Shopify Rebellion versus version 1. Both teams undefeated, and they set their sights on the grand final. But most importantly, who is the best team in North America? Mimi, Shopify Rebellion have kept that same roster, that dynasty since the championship, while version 1 have rebuilt from some of the best pieces in game changers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of history, like I was talking about with this upper final. All of last year, it was this Shopify Rebellion squad, even going back to 2021, competing to make their way to the top against Cloud9. But at the Game Changers Champions, they finally overcame their demons, knocked Cloud9 out, ended up finishing second, and now for the first time ever, come into a Game Changers regionally with an expectation of probably being the best team in Game Changers North America. Whereas, on the other hand, for V1, it has some pieces of that squad that used to rule here in North America, but it is very much a new product, Wyatt.
Yeah, absolutely. For version 1, at this point, it's just about trying to create another dynasty for Mel and Alexis with a new team. It's a chance to begin something new from last year for that duo, ending off at really the lowest note that they had ever experienced in their entire Game Changers history. This is just a chance to begin something fresh with fresh faces in the scene. That all that time when they were on top, these were the players that they're surrounded with now that were working their way up there.
Yeah, and you can see, despite the changes, despite the rebuild, a squad led by Mel and Alexis, those 2 players who have won every single Game Changers in the past in North America, is still dominating at the top level. They are yet to drop more than 8 rounds. They're yet to drop a map against any team in this tournament thus far. So despite being a new squad and having those expectations reset for V1, they're still in pursuit of that same greatness that players on this team have managed to achieve and succeed at in the past.
And why version 1 are just looking so stacked right out the gate. And you're really interested. I mean, really, there's interesting storylines across the board of all these players that have so much history. And you were really interested in Noya and Sarah having that similar arc before joining the team.
Yeah, the way this team has been constructed is pretty cool. Like throughout this, throughout all of last year, rather, it was, Noy and Sarah, there was a lot of buzz of both of them on their individual respective teams having a lot of potential, looking like they could go beyond the finishes that they were having in the year. But there was just never really an opportunity in the circuit for upcoming players to really get to the top level, because it was just occupied by like the two juggernauts clashing with C9 and Shopify. But with this offseason post the championship last year, now those players, they've had an opportunity to actually join up with part of that Cloud9 core. And I just really love how they've integrated these new players into the team, they being Mel and Alexis, their experience, their proficiency on the support roles, and that just allowing these players who had the star power and the potential to actually come in and show it off with them.
I mean, speaking of that star power, Mimi, let's talk about how awesome Fluorescent is, touted as one of the best players in Game Changers coming from Misfits Black.
Yeah, that she was. Fluorescent was like the talent of last year, where Wyatt, you said not many people could break through and kind of show their talent with those two juggernauts in charge. Fleur was the one person who found that gap. Playing with Misfits last year, she was absolutely incredible. And now transitioning over with this squad as well in version 1, she's been playing great. I think we have a video from some of their crazy moments throughout this one already.
Both you players. 1v1. I have their backup. We're on it. We're gonna put a rifle now.
The movement is just so insane. I mean, I'm seeing this clip posted everywhere, deservedly so. Just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that Fluorescent can do is insane. And she has some history against the Shopify squad that she's facing again today. Game Changers 3 last year, the one that really mattered, trying to fight for a spot to champions, everyone was sure that it would be Cloud9 and Shopify. But in the lower final, Fluorescent's performance with her former team in Misfits almost meant that her team, Misfits, had a chance of being the squad to make it to the international event, just almost solely off of her absurd individual play. Now with Misfits falling apart and making some big roster changes, Fluorescent has been picked up instead by version 1 in a team that, built by Mel and Alexis, has so many pieces that help her to thrive and be not only that insane individual she was before, but I think also on a team that I would expect to hit higher ceilings than Misfits ever did.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm really looking for from Fluorescent and just the team as a whole, like with that stat sheet that you saw in that match against Shopify, Fluorescent had in the series 17 first kills, that's great, but also 14 first deaths. Like, there was not as much of a well-oiled machine around Fluorescent at those times. And when you were watching her play, you got the sense oftentimes that they knew they needed to be a hero. And a lot of times that doesn't actually put you in position to be a hero. It ends up with you overplaying your position, going in too deep, trying to do too much, trying to take too many fights. But now in a more established system that I think really understands how to properly set her up, like especially with how excellent Alexis has been on the breach since late last year. I mean, genuinely, her utility timings are amazing on the roll. And having that structure is what I'm looking to see propel Fluorescent like to the top, where it looks like she can definitely be.
Well, Fluorescent's at the top of my brain because she's Canadian and I gotta support my fellow Canadians out there. But let's also show some love to Shopify Rebellion, Wyatt. The vice champions, as I like to call it, from the Game Changers Championship from last year. They're aiming to cement themselves as the best team in North America.
Yeah, I mean, Shopify, like Mimi had said earlier, coming off of that second place finish at Champions, almost winning it out, just losing in that unfortunate fashion with the reverse sweep comeback. But now heading into this year, just a more experienced team than ever. This core has been together now for so long, and that's one of the critical things that you're looking at in taking a win here. The trust in the players in each other, what they've been building for so long with each other.
Yeah, and that's where we see the flip in this team, because last year, Shopify was defined as second fiddle. The underdogs, they're playing close. Can they beat Cloud9 this time? Because the record was insane against them. 12 games played, Cloud9 won 10 of them. But now into this new team, into this new year, I think the expectations have shifted. Like you're saying, they're expected to be the best squad in NA, and the leadership is a big part of that. KP has always been someone who has really taken charge of that team, has been willing to make some crazy, ridiculous calls to try and upset and push your team to the next level, while also building up the players around her and developing talent from kind of a scrappy new team to one who could contest for championships on LAN. On the other side, for Mel, she was the player who was always at the top. She was like the CEO of women, the face of Game Changers, the one that everyone thought of when you thought of this scene. And now, with that kind of slip up at Champions last year, with Cloud9 falling apart, there's a chance that she could lose that position to Shopify, to KP. So this match for Mel, I think, is a lot of regaining that crown. Well, for the side of Shopify and KP, it's about proving what they earned at Champions is something that they can stick through for the rest of 2023 into the future, and maybe build a dynasty like Cloud9 once did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that KP has really proven that it's something that the team can do. They've been on such a great run so far in this tournament. The most rounds that they've dropped in a map is 10. They look head and shoulders above the rest of the competition, and it really just has come down to this heads-up match between the two. And talking about experience on Shopify, I mean, experience IGLing, Mel has so much of it, with different teams at different levels of competition, playing in tons of different tournaments across Valorant, playing at LANs. I mean, Mel has kind of done it all, and still it doesn't feel undoable, though, for the Shopify side, for KP.
And there's so much history between these two teams, behind these players, the long resumes and the amount of success that they hope to continue either on their same core roster or on the rebuild. But Mimi, speaking of player lore, let's talk about the Lori lore on the Initiator.
Yeah, Lori is a player who really impressed me towards the end of last year. She's always been a consistent force on this team, but at Game Changers 3 last year, the one to qualify to Champions, she stepped up. We talked earlier about that close game of Misfits versus Shopify. It was Lori's individual performances, her crazy clutch rounds that pulled this team over the line, got them to that LAN. And when they were at that LAN, she was performing there as well. She's the player to look at for the Shopify squad when you're seeking for that consistency and when you're seeking that fantastic utility. You brought up, Wyatt, the duo between Mel and Alexis and the way that they set Floor up for success. Sonder has the same traits on this squad as well. Lori and KP together with the Breach, the Sky utility are fantastic at setting their own young star up for success. And one of the big reasons that this squad was able to hit the peaks that they did was the consistency of the supportive players like Lori.
And Wyatt, you were telling me Shopify Rebellion is kind of this whimsical team. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that listen, there are many whimsical teams in the game of Valorant. When you hear about the whimsy, you think of, like, I don't know, a team like Paper Rex or, you know, a squad like that. And I think Shopify, they fall into that category as well, where sometimes the whimsical teams, they look like they're just so confident and everything is so easy that they'll just walk over the opposition, like Shopify really have up until this point. But sometimes when they're pushed, they take the whimsy too far. They get a little bit too silly, which Shopify has definitely done. I think they already kind of did this year, where they were opting to play the Yoru quite a bit on maps like Fracture, and it just wasn't really working out. Where then in the same series, if you just saw Sonder, who's playing that Yoru, play Jet, she was just going crazy, and then switch to the Yoru, and it's just chaos. And now on that map, Fracture, for instance, if we see it today, they've switched that over to a Neon comp, which is a little bit more standard, but there's still times where I feel like sometimes there could be a disconnect on the Shopify team with how wild their front line is on some of their attacking rounds, and kind of maneuvering the follow-up from the support players is difficult when that is the case. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be looking for in this game. If that's something that, maybe they accidentally succumb to, and then that gives an opening for version 1. If that's something version 1 might be ready to exploit, if Fracture's a map in the pool, or one of those maps where they're playing, the Neon, something fast like that.
Yeah, I think bringing up the mental is really important, because this is something that this team kind of talked about somewhat last year. In these games versus Cloud9, they were playing them so many times, and I think they at times might have ended up with kind of a mental block where it felt like we can't beat this team. Even if you're not actually saying it, you feel in the back of your head. You've lost to them 10 different times in every finals, always getting so close to that final goal, but never hitting it. That kind of does a toll on your mental. But at the end of the last year, I think they made a lot of improvements of that mental game with bringing in Benita, a very, very experienced player from her time back in CS and here in Valorant as well. She's been to so many international events and has always succeeded at them. And the team has talked about that part of that development was kind of getting a handle on their mental, getting a little away from the more wilder plays where they would sometimes lead to those chokes. And we saw that performance come through at the championship, where despite the fact that the finals ended in disaster and we still saw shades of those issues, they were able to overcome their demon and beat Cloud9. They were able to perform consistently on that big stage, and I think if they're bringing that stronger mental now back to North America, they're on the right track to maybe be that best squad.
And I mean, Shopify Rebellion can lean on Benita, while version 1 feel like they can lean on Mel. Feels like from Cloud9 White, I heard a lot about how Mel was not only that leader in the game, but leader out of the game, bringing the strategy, being very vocal, and having Alexis as backbone, having the duo by her side makes her, of course, a lot more comfortable, Wyatt.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, when you're talking about the mental meme, I can't help but think about some of the players on this version 1 roster, as they haven't had the same experience as the entirety of the Shopify team. I mean, there's a massive difference in playing on the grand finals on stage and what, Noya, Sarah, their experience just playing in the Game Changers regional playoffs, which is good in its own right, but we're talking about two very different things there, right? And even within Game Changers regionally, not playing in the finals, not making as deep of runs as the whole Shopify team and as their teammates, Mel and Alexis. And, when we're talking about the composition of that team, it's 5 separate parts, and how crucial it is for kind of the two halves to be working in tandem. The half of this support core that's so good, so reliable, the experience of Mel and Alexis, and then really putting a lot of trust in the other 3 to be the impactful fraggers on the team. I don't think Floor has ever looked not confident to me, ever, in any situation. I feel like even, despite all that, I don't think Floor could not play confidently. But I suppose it's not so much saying that we know whether or not the other two will be able to keep up their performance as the tournament goes deeper and as the stakes raise, but it's just a question that we'll have answered. And I expect good things, but it still does remain a question mark, right? We just literally have not seen it up until this point.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten that far yet. And I think as well, for the side of Shopify, Game Changers Champions is going to be such a big learning opportunity for them. And I even saw some of the learnings coming through during it. They had a really tragic match loss in their first game against Team Liquid Brazil, where they ended up in overtime on Bind, and a Skyseeker blocked a shot in one clutch. They were a round away from winning the series. And then it meant that they got knocked down. They kind of lost the game in a tragic fashion, but they rallied back in the lower bracket, beat TL Brazil, beat Cloud9 White, and then got to that final hurdle. This is a team who's had the opportunity to lose together, to learn together. That's something that Mel was always talking so much about back with Cloud9, that they've had years together to lose, to learn, to make improvements, to work through those issues as a team. They're starting from scratch, and they're going to be having to relearn those lessons with these new players. Well, Shopify is coming from being the advantaged in being that team who has already had so much of that experience.
And neither team have dropped any games in Game Changers so far. And I mean, limited amounts of rounds, as Mimi already pointed out. Let's take a look at the map pick and bans, because somebody's got to lose today. And why, I want to get your general thoughts. Shopify Rebellion pick Fracture, version 1 pick Icebox, Pearl is our decider.
Interesting. Yeah, so the first two bans kind of making sense. Ascent has looked pretty good for the version 1 side, so seeing that ban definitely makes some sense. Fracture immediately off the jump, though, that's going to be crazy. That map is going to be chaos because, well, chaos in that you're going to see some unusual picks, but maybe not chaotic depending on how structured the game plans are with the picks. And what I'm referring to is Shopify, like I had talked about a little bit earlier, they play this Neon comp, which a lot of teams have kind of strayed away from so far this year. And then on the opposing side, this is actually a map where version 1 pick up the Gecko. And you've not seen a lot of Gecko on Fracture just in general in competition so far as much as some of the other maps, so that's going to be really interesting.
One thing I'm interested in is if that is V1's kind of final form of their composition. Something that they actually did quite often when it was Mel leading back with Cloud9 is that they would play different comps depending on kind of what level they evaluated their opponents. Like for most of the group stages in their first few matches in Game Changers, they would have Mel on Chamber. Just Mel go kill, ego pick it, challenge, try and stomp whoever she can. And then once they got to teams like Shopify that they knew would play much closer matches against them, they had a bit more, I guess, deep compositions picked in where they would switch over to the Cypher, where they would change things up. So I'm wondering if that's something that they do stick with. As well as we do get later into this one, we also get to see Pearl in the mix, which is another interesting map. For Shopify, they've been kind of sticking with the meta that we're starting to develop here a lot with the double wall Harbor Viper composition that has worked very well for a lot of teams. And on top of that, over on the side of V1, they've experimented with like a Cloud9, not Cloud9 White, Cloud9, the team playing in America's composition, where they're running like Phoenix and Sage and going for some weird stuff of their own. So both these teams have had a lot of interesting ideas, and I'm really excited to see if they stick to those strange compositions or if we see more normalcy, I guess, in the match today.
Yeah, that middle map as well, the version 1 pick Icebox should be fireworks on the server. With every map of Icebox that they've played so far, Fluorescent has dropped like minimum 20, I think, and that includes winning like, you know, whatever, it's like 13-1, and Floor still has like 22 kills. And on the opposing side, I think Shopify only played Icebox once, but on that one map as well, I think Sonder had like 27 kills on Jet. So you're just going to see, I would imagine, both Star Duelists going absolutely out of control on that map, and then it's just going to be a matter of really who can set their duelist up the best. Like which duelist is going to be set up to pop off and is going to go off harder. And that map could just be mad entertaining to watch because of that.
Yeah, you get the battle of the duelists between those two. You also get a map where, for just the series as a whole, despite the fact that it is new teams, KP and Mel have played against each other so many times. These two IGLs are so familiar with each other's ideas, their tendencies, and every time that these two matched up on their previous team with Cloud9 for Mel, there was a new idea, there was an adaptation. It was trying to come up with something new, because when you've played someone that many times, it almost kind of can develop its own little metagame of its own. And I hope that that kind of idea continues. Of these two finding those adaptations, trying out new compositions because they have such great respect for each other.
Well, we are still waiting for one more player in our lobby, but just to recap the scores of what we've seen so far, version 1 won Fracture the only time they went 13-3 over FaZe Clan. And then on Shopify Rebellion's side, 13-2 against Overkill Black in the qualifier. So this is a strong start for both of our teams, but we're actually still missing a player. So we're going to throw you to a quick break. And when we get back, we'll have the game ready. Oh my god, guys, I think the upper final is almost ready. Shopify Rebellion versus version 1. It's gonna be hype. Fracture is our first map. I believe Agent Select is ready to go. Looking forward to seeing that, because Wyatt, you brought up some interesting picks on Fracture, specifically with the Neon and the Gecko. Yeah,
definitely. Both teams playing pretty unorthodox compositions. I mean, maybe V1 more so than Shopify Rebellion. But like I said, the Neon was being played pretty frequently in the past. It's just not super popular this year. It was kind of late last year that a lot of teams were experimenting with it. And they're really teasing us by giving that pick last. All right, there it is. And the Neon is going to come in, and the Gecko on the other side. So this map is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this Neon comp was a defining one of last year, but what we're seeing out of V1 is something new, and I'm wondering what ideas do they have cooked up starting on this attacking side. There's a lot of angles where you can throw the Dizzy over on this map for executes where it can be quite helpful. Wingman can help clear spaces towards Heaven if you're pushing through sands. There's a lot of ideas you can do with it where it's also recoverable, but if the idea is around planting Spike, you don't have a Harbor, you don't have a Sage, you don't really have something to pair with him, but so there's a lot of angles on this map where you can plant without it. I imagine V1 have a fun game plan cooked up, and I'm really excited to see what they have prepped.
I'm excited for this final two, and it's ready. No more breaks. Who is the best team in North America? We're about to find out. To bring us through all of it, let's send it over to our casters, Doug and Bala.
Thank you, Lemon Kiwi. Yeah, I'm here for the fun, Bala, and we've got a lot of fun right off the bat. Have you ever seen Gecko on Fracture? Because I have not.
That one's an interesting one, and they ran it early in the tournament, so I'm super interested to see how it plays out. This one is very curious, and on the other side, too, the Neon comp kind of coming back into play when I think a lot of people have been dropping it because of how much Sentinel play you're getting. It's not just against Chamber. It's not just one trip. There's definitely a lot of stuff that can slow you down, so I'm interested to see how these two ideas clash here on Fracture.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I think the question is, especially given the fact that you don't have a ton of cover for Wingman, because that's the point of conversation, right? Whenever we see a Gecko, we go, Wingman, can you plant? Can you plant safely? No cove, no wall, no nothing really to kind of help that out. So I wonder if this is just like going to be a Wingman abuse simulator, or if they have plans and protocols around making sure he can safely get plants down.
Yeah, well, I'm actually super interested in the synergy between the Boombot and Wingman when you're actually using it to clear angles. And just requiring yourself to have multiple things to shoot at. Looking at this setup from Shopify, you have the Brim ready to smoke inside of halls, ready to trap something as well. But there's 4 players here from Shopify, so already a good readout from them on what version 1 wanted to do on this pistol.
They clear out the trips, they nade, they fault line, they dizzy, and they go. Couple smokes to provide some cover, but they fully established control on the site. You've got a huge timing on Noya and Fluorescent on the swing. It's a slaughter. They were so trapped. Can they keep them back, though? Another kill going in favor of version 1 as KP trades it back. Now Flowerful left in this 1v3. He's got plenty of options. None of them really good. The tap to bring up. Wow. Huh? Huh? Well, that was gross.
Yep.
But V1 wins the round.
That's how this is going to be. Okay, we're going to have just insane skill right off the rip. Okay. And I was already like listening to what the desk was saying, how the version 1 team put together. I was already getting ready for Floor to go crazy, for Alexis, and obviously all the former Cloud9 White players as well to go insane. But they really have tried to put together the Game Changer super team. I know they were calling themselves that the entirety of last year, but in terms of like all the stars that were coming out from the other portion of Game Changers, not just their own team. The only people they really didn't touch was the team they're playing against now, Shopify.
Yeah.
And they do take the pistol lead. Another engagement early here, anti-eco though. And they're trying to deny this orb.
They have a good look at this crossfire setup that they have around 3 members from the defensive side there. And yeah, Saunders goofed, but there's just no way to follow up.
Yeah, good Aftershock to save them, but
yeah,
that is KP not using it in the last round. And they're just sitting there waiting because of the position that Noya's gotten to. So they want to re-challenge and want to get Noya some extra kills if they try to rotate out this position.
Second stun, and now the Fash. Fluorescent maxing on up. Glory the first to fall, and you see the difference in the guns here. Version 1, even through the utility that Shopify Rebellion were dumping towards where they were, they're just able to run, like bully their way through it.
Yeah.
Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade.
There was definitely a setup there. You could see the neon stun and everything like that, but something that's been missing on this map for quite some time since Chamber's been out of the meta is actually being able to bait out some of that utility. So they did a good job not really getting hurt by it because the Raze, Fluorescent with the movement. We watched that clip on Ascent in the pre-show.
Filthy.
She's still doing it on Raze without just free movement abilities. It's actually requiring insane coordination. And they avoid all the traps entirely there. Plus Noya getting into such a good position. That's not going to be something that...
One enemy remaining.
That's not going to be something Noya getting that flank up drop. That's not going to be free every time. You already saw that trip was there on the pistol round. You could expect that to continue to happen. And especially as well, Shopify with an eco plan there. Really not trying to pay too much mind to a holistic view of the round. Just trying to get something on terms of a gamble.
Shopify now with guns, light armor for KP, but healthy the rest of the way.
Game Changers has really not been adopting the full light armor strat that the rest of the pro scene is.
Yeah, not at all.
So it's interesting and curious, like the reasoning why, but another engagement early. It's just over and over. Saunders left on her own, but that's a great stun. Not going to find anything from it, though.
Just a little late. And they had such a cool setup, right? They had the fault line, they had Lori's utility, and then they had Saunders' go button. But it was just a little late. Great timing out from version 1, and now KP just gets destroyed on site. Wingman gets the spike down.
Thanks, Wings. Found them.
And this is a huge opportunity early on Fracture for version 1 to balloon a lead.
Yeah, and the crazy part is the amount of rifles they actually bought on that first round. So now picking up to all the rifles that they just got on site. That brawl, that's the type of thing that'll allow your bonus to just be so good. If you win those early duels, if you're able to also avoid, you saw how Mel's pathing there was way right onto the dish, way right of the stun. So she's able to swing back out after that stun, effectively save all of her teammates there. Are they going to run into Benita?
Are they aware? Sarah looks aware.
Standing.
Sarah's aware. Yep.
Based off of how these first 3 rounds have gone, V1 are looking very warmed up.
Yeah.
I mean, very warmed up. Now they've got the Thrash. Only 1 gun was saved out of that bonus for Shopify, so things are looking not great to start things off on this attack side. And again, Hop decision here. They're trying to form this game plan around Sonder, and they need to get something working. It's all been over towards this A side, and honestly, all the gambles have kind of been directed in the right direction. Once again, you see 4 players stacked over towards B. Go for a north side push.
Noya able to get out of there.
Just so quick at the response there.
Yeah. The window was small. It was close. Wingman going forward again. Uh-oh. You called out the Bucky. Wingman stays alive. Sarah stays alive. Mel does not.
This is smoked up for quite some time, so they've got to get the spams through it. There's nobody really to throw close point util.
Well, Sarah had ult, but died. Floor still has ult. Noya has it, Molly. Or Floor is just going to style all over Shopify. That works too.
All right, this is the level of Floor showing up right now. 6-0 to start this game off. That first shot was so impactful. If they got half of it, it's going to be so much more difficult. That is just nasty.
Floor's just such a treat to watch, bro. So good.
I mean, Mimi was talking about, Wyatt was talking about how she's always so confident. And you can see right there, just taking those peeks, just pre-firing everything, not really even caring where exactly they are. She'll just lock onto them eventually.
Yeah.
And again, here, is there a signal for Noya to run away? She's not on the rope fast this time. Someone might be able to catch her.
Woo!
Oh, no.
That was so close.
7 HP, bro.
7.
This reaction to the A with the Thrash is just so solid, too. Gonna clear out spawn with this ult. The amount of space that is owned right now, 4v1, is honestly insurmountable.
But Shopify have to try. They have the Rolling Thunder, and there it is. Invested. It's going to clear out back spawn. But nobody tagged. They still have so much control of the site. Flowerful, eyes fall on Flowerful. She has to find timing. She has to find pressure.
She's still gunning for you.
But Alexis responds. Now you have Thrash as Sarah dances around the wall. You've got the Orbital Strike 2. A little pocket for KP to play in, though.
One enemy remaining.
This is a slaughter early.
Yeah. Yeah, they might just start to run away with this. KP has a chance, but Alexis, it was planted for her in spawn too, so the amount of times that they're getting this wingman plant on the front of site, by the way, you don't normally see Gecko get that much value in terms of being able to fight while the plant is going off. Usually that wingman dies, usually you don't get in sight with it, but In that case, they reacted really well off the north side pressure that came in from Shopify. So that kind of was gifted all that space. But I also want to credit the Brim ult was tried to be comboed with the Thrash detain. So that was almost a guaranteed kill there. Just the Thrash slightly too low on HP to make it all the way.
Timeout called here from Shopify Rebellion. They find themselves down 5 rounds early in this best of 3. You know, we've talked about how effective Sarah has been on the Gecko, how Flora just kind of styles all over Shopify. And I do think, while there has been a couple of interesting things we've seen out of Shopify, it really just feels like they're outclassed here. And that honestly, given how both of the teams have gotten to this point, it's a bit surprising. Neither of them have dropped a map. The closest map we've seen is Shopify winning 13-10 against Evo Geniuses. It's been stomps for these teams the entire way.
Yeah, so you honestly, because of that, you didn't really know what the relative strength was between them. The desk was talking about how at the beginning of this, especially just based off of how the teams were built, you kind of expected Shopify to be the ones who were favorites leaning into this. Still early in the series, and I think as the older team gets on in this, that's where you start to expand and see what's going on. We'll see what Rob Wiz has discussed in that timeout. So far, it's just another gamble here on that A side in Halls, and V1 for the first time is going to go away from that and leave Flowerful all on her own on the site.
No knife to clear out Flowerful, so she can play a little close here. Goot not landing. The nade is gonna hurt. The flash too. Man, so diligent in every single thing they do.
Oh, but this stun is huge.
Yeah, because there gonna be anyone in time. Mel's just gonna get 2 while stunned, man.
Oh boy. Oh me, oh my.
Last enemy remaining.
Right. Okay. Now, I will say, the one thing, and I don't know if this is the case or not, it's tough to say, but you wonder if, given the timeout that was called in the previous round, if that was more of a focus on this round that we're about to go on. And maybe they have something special prepared here, and it be less about that pistol round we just saw.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you want to be planning, again, kind of for all the different ideas that V1 is going, and then also have some sort of idea for the next following gun round. So see if they swap the setups. I do like what they're doing with the Cypher right now. Flowerful putting her camera over on B and then leaving the trips over on A. And they will actually be also having a trip on drop. So also a more passive setup on this B side. But V1 for the first time going fast, and it's going to cost them dearly. Zonder down, and another good flash.
These first kill, first death stats are going to be insane.
I don't know if Shopify's gotten a single one. Maybe the pistol?
So yeah. It hasn't been good.
This definitely rough scenes.
Spike sticking.
Speaking of the timeout as well, let's see if they decide to save these guns, although engaging right here for Benita.
One enemy remaining.
And a
They
good
know where
loss
she
for
is.
Benita too. Yeah.
Is there going to be another attempt here at like a ninja or something like that? Maybe. But you need a spark at this point. You thought it might be the timeout, but the point I was going to make was Shopify Rob Wiz, fantastic coach. You've clearly seen that throughout the last season, how deep they went into that international tournament and how hard it hit them to miss him in that grand finals against G2. But for V1, their new coach is probably the most storied out of any Game Changers coach at this point. Effie's joining this team.
Yeah.
Is such a ridiculously good pickup. Fireful might get caught. No, not enough time. Yeah, he was playing on V1 last year, right? He was playing on a team that got a lot of hype around them because of the way that he structured the team, the way that he was playing within the team. And the experience that he brings is so invaluable. He's played on LAN. He's played so many years professionally.
Lots of experience he's able to bring to the team, bring to the table, really.
Knife deployed.
Immediately swapped back here. The Cypher back over towards B and gone right back to the setup where they're trying to get that aftershock, the neon stuns, and time it well, but Saunders getting a little impatient on the door, so they know something is here in A Halls.
Oh, Benitez has the ult prime too. You can see she's ready for it, but Flora just contacts all the way up. She gets past the trap that was set, and she does it via silence.
Three down.
And yeah, that just doesn't work at all.
Nope.
The wingman's
Is Wingman finally gonna die? That might be the first death for Wingman too.
Oh, might be a second death here against Sarah. Yeah, Sarah's
it
down.
is.
spike down B.
Both of those trips finding a lot of value there. But it's still a lopsided situation here.
Yeah.
You act like the wingman dying was such a successful thing
enemy
for them, but there's still a 5v4 in that situation. He's got a cage, maybe.
That's the temptation.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, her footsteps are giving her away at this point. She's looking for any target she can find, and while Alexis goes down, Noi is there for the trade.
This is a brutal start.
Yeah.
Your expectations coming into this, if you're Shopify, were okay. We should be doing great against this team. I can't imagine, knowing that they were going to be huge rivals, they were playing against each other much in scrims. So I'm wondering what they really thought about it and how much this is hurting their idea of what they thought this matchup would be. Because an 8-0 start off the first engagement for these two teams in the new year, the first time you're ever really playing against this team for Shopify since V1 is new. You know V1 was coming to this confident. The team that they built, you know they're happy about the roster. Shopify, I'm wondering what to expect from them, and I didn't expect this much of a beating.
No. Not at all. Sonder just attempted to get her first kill of the series of the map and still unable to in a stunned Fluorescent.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Fluorescent's pushing that while stunned. I mean, confidence is ridiculous for her.
Yep. And this looks like another round that's going to go in favor of version 1.
Little detail there for the lockdown. You saw how it was kind of far back, not just tucked in that wall. That's because you already get max value from it. You're already clearing tower from it. So you're playing KJ in ranks. Make sure you get that so you get that extra space and spawn.
I mean, what do Shopify do from here, man?
Molly.
There's lineups for days. Mel has her ults.
Yeah. Look at Alexis set up. This is what I mean.
Oh,
Yeah,
Molly
bro.
missed. But they saw it coming and they didn't even want to bother with it.
Yeah, it's okay.
And they're
this-
right. I mean, there's probably an aftershock still. They're probably counting that utility. There's obviously still the Brim ult, so yeah.
And this is kind of what we were alluding to earlier, is just how diligent version 1 are in every aspect of the game. Think about the fact that they're up in a 2v4. They have their post plans exceptionally well set up. They have the lineup from Mel that you mentioned, the aftershock from Alexis, and then the ult too if needed in the orbital strike. Like, they're so thorough and so diligent from top to bottom. How do you navigate that? How do you beat a team that's that thorough?
Well, the thing too, you're absolutely right, and you also see it in the end there. There's still so much time for them to chase down those guns. So the point is, Shopify's not really doing anything to get this utility out. So you talk about diligence, and for sure, the best part about it is that they're not really spending so much to get on the sites, even though it's working. They're not fully executing and using all of their utility because they don't need to in this case.
They're literally just aimed at things. Benito going aggressive.
What a filthy spray transfer. Sarah is nasty. We thought she was insane based on her performance at Immortals last year. But all these girls are so good.
Ball, and I'm not going to lie to you, bro. This feels like personal. This is not just we're trying to beat you. This feels like they're intentionally trying to like make an example out of the other best team in NA.
Especially on a team level, but man, I'm not even necessarily feeling it like on a level like where in the past where something gets personal like that, where there's an old rivalry or something, or there's trash talk, you see the players going at each other, like trying to fight each other heads up every single time. That's the type of thing that you see here. You're right. This is I mean, we've talked to Mel in the past on Cloud9 White, and her goal a lot of times in these Game Changers events, because they've won every single one of them, was always, let's dominate as hard as possible. Let's make a statement. Let's make sure everybody knows this is not possible for you.
They are. They are. What a cool trap. And look at Floor go. So far up already. There's another multi-kill setup. The thing is, you've got Firefall just above, man! But unaware as to Fluorescent's positioning. Finally, we're equalized in numbers, and they have the advantage, but can Sarah clutch it out? A 1v1. Spike planted. Sarah has ult. She can play this as patiently as she wants, but of course she goes aggressive! And Benita wins the duel out.
Player standing.
The final first round, finally the first round on the board for Shopify.
Spoil the party.
It is so important for them to start to rack something
Last
up
round
for the
before the
series, for the
switch.
map, whatever you want to call it. And of course it's Benita, one of the
Player standing.
longest standing veterans in the scene so far.
This goes here. Oh, this is a nice spot.
But still, that round was, I mean, that was where I start to see it get a little personal, Doug. You know, when you're talking about how aggro they're being, how they want to wipe the floor with them. There is an overextension on a lot of fronts from version 1. Mel, Fluorescent. Fluorescent was by herself, still got the 2 kills, but then pushing up into spawn as the Cypher ult's going off. And that seems to be part of their game plan, so I'm not going to discount it from them, but there's a level of when does it stop?
Yeah. Start to see some of these trips cleared out, utility used. Well, be a little too far up. There's a judge on the other side, and that Rolling Thunder is going to help a lot. Look at the pinch they have coming in from the northern side.
What?
They're in trouble. Can they weather the storm? Alexis just turned on Sonder while stunned, man.
Last player
But
standing.
Shopify should have an advantage here. Yeah, they
Down
do.
B.
Off of the Rolling Thunder and off of the pinch from the northern side, Shopify find a second.
And again, needed it.
Switching sides.
Whatever's going on, whatever the discussion is right now, we know KP is good at getting her teams to bounce back. We've seen it multiple times. And now, 10-2 half. Obviously, this is devastating. Obviously, this isn't going to be truly possible. But you need, in a series like this, for the decider about who goes to grand finals, you need to not let this statement happen.
Yeah, yep.
Otherwise, you walk back up into the upper bracket finals, if you make it there at that point, depending on how hurt you actually are. If you make it back there, you know what happened to you in the first engagement.
Yeah, you don't forget a whooping like this.
2 rounds in a row, though. And the pistol did start a little scrappy, so let's see if they can make it the same way and win it out this time.
I think, again, we look on to Sonder here as the, oh, she was
pitching.
ahead of the flash. She was very ahead of the flash.
There's 2 players here. I don't know if they expect the second.
Next.
Yes.
Spike planted.
Sonder
Yes,
was
they do.
supposed to be, yeah, Sonder was supposed to be that final pinch there. All the way in from Dish, swinging through sight to apply pressure in halls, and it just didn't matter. Because Flora was there. Flora's gotten 3, and the 4th is right there. But Noya cleans it up. Version 1 win another round. And that was a desperately needed one if you were Shopify.
Yep, that might just be the game right there.
Yeah. Crazy thing, too, is this is their map pick, man.
Yeah. This is their map pick. It's one
Love
that they were experimenting on, one that they were trying to find the right comp idea. And it's just, yeah, in the past, you've definitely, I mean, when you look back at the Shopify Cloud9 White fights that they've had, Fracture was definitely one that Shopify was happy to take them to.
Alarm bot out.
And honestly as well, Sonder was one of the most inspiring Neon players of the last year. And it was maps like this, it was maps on Fracture where you could see that. So I definitely can imagine it's one of their places where they're feeling strong. And who knows, it might still be, but this is just V1 on another level right now.
Yeah. Feels so reminiscent to the conversations we had all last year. Again, with the exception of Champs. It just felt like version 1 was head above everyone, and there's really no competition, and it's just who's fighting for second place. Seems like a lot of what we're in for this year as well.
Oh, this is tough.
Spike down.
Only
B.
one player trying to clear her. Everybody else is pushing spawn to try to find weapons, and Noya has free reign up here.
One enemy remaining.
Scanning
It's
field.
just filthy, man.
All targets
one of the
eliminated.
Most difficult situations to deal with,
Match point.
both in the score and then every round it's coming down the floor. Just like, how do you even kill her? The tower player having a judge, of course they do, you know. I think that's also a really good investment here when you know they're going to force 100% of the time.
Scanning
The judge is just so solid.
Yeah. A very casual 20-6 for Fluorescent. Really.
15 rounds, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. Nice and easy. Just another day in the office. Shopify with another force because you don't really have any other choice.
Gotta go.
They've gotten all the way up to B. They've gotten site. They've gotten tower.
It's already a minor success.
Yeah.
They have to deal with this force bolts. She's coming from the top side though, and that camera will definitely spot her. So they know where the ult's going to come from. How do they combo it though? How many stuns are they going to get? Are they going to get any Gecko util value out of this?
Oh, another. I mean, Lori's able to trade it out, but the damage is done. 9 HP and a 4v2 now.
Enemy remaining.
Has gotten closer, but Alexis is just going to hold the defuse. She's just going to hold the defuse. It ends like this. A
Defenders
3K
win.
for Noya, a stolen defuse for Alexis, and a statement. A beating, a brutal beating. Out of version 1 as they take a 1-0 series lead.
That is just disgusting from version 1. I was not expecting that. I mean, that was, I mean, you saw so many of the storylines coming into this. How good is Fluorescent? She's insane.
Yeah.
How good is the team vibing together? Very well. Like, there's so
Yeah.
many of these questions that you don't necessarily get answered. I don't even think we've had a broadcasted game, a casted game 4v1 yet at this point.
I don't think so.
And here you go. I mean, there's a preview of what's to come because it's nasty. I think the one thing, when you look at a scoreline like that, where it's 13-2, you maybe think, okay, they might take their foot off the gas because they feel like this is too easy. And I think that has been a problem for Mel-led teams in the past, where it's like a laughing matter to them. And that is always good, but it might end up going off the wrong way. Who knows?
It just feels like a little extra swagger this time around. We'll see on the other side of this break. We'll be right back.